On the evening of my 70th birthday, my son slid a glossy brochure across the dinner table and said, very calmly, "Mom, this house is wasted on you now." The fork slipped out of my hand and hit the china with a sharp little ping. The sound seemed to echo in the warm dining room, louder than the soft piano music, louder than the fake laughter. The brochure was thick, smooth under my fingertips. On the front was a picture of an elderly woman about my age. Gray hair curled, smiling on a park bench between two strangers in pastel sweaters. Above her head were the words, asterisk, asterisk, welcome home to Silver Pines, assisted living, asterisk, asterisk. My son, Daniel, gave me the tight smile he uses with difficult clients. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, watched my face very carefully, her red lipstick not quite hiding the small, impatient line in her mouth. The dining room smelled of roast chicken and rosemary, the candles throwing soft golden light across the cracked wooden table I'd polished for 35 years. Outside, November rain tapped against the window, steady and thin. I felt suddenly very cold. At my age, I said slowly, I still know how to read, Daniel. His smile didn't move, but the muscles around his eyes tightened. Guilt? Irritation? I've spent decades reading his face while he pretended not to have one. It's not what you think, Mom, he said in that soothing managerial tone. Just look through it. Silver Pines is beautiful. There are activities and nurses on site, and locks on the outside of the doors? I asked. My voice came out quieter than I meant, but somehow the whole table heard. My younger sister, June, shifted in her chair, eyes dropping to her plate. She was only here because family should be together on big birthdays. Daniel had said that like a judge pronouncing sentence. Melissa laughed, too quickly. Oh, Evelyn, don't be dramatic. It's not a prison. It's... She smoothed her napkin, fingertips brushing away crumbs that weren't there. That's what she does when she lies. She cleans invisible mess. At my age, people think I'm too old to understand when I'm being moved out of the way, I said. Daniel's jaw tightened. No one is moving you out of the way, Mom. We're thinking of your safety. He gestured vaguely around my dining room, at the faded wallpaper I'd picked with his father in 1983, at the narrow stairs where my grandchildren had slid down on their bottoms, shrieking with laughter last Christmas before Melissa decided my stairs were a hazard and they stopped visiting. 2 stories, he said. Steep steps, old wiring. You live here alone. What if you fall? What if there's a fire? There was a fire, I said. In 1992. Your father fell asleep with a cigarette. I carried you and your sister out through the smoke while he snored on the sofa. You were 10 years old. Do you remember that, Daniel? He blinked. For a second, I saw the boy who used to cling to my waist when thunder shook the windows. Then the man came back, the man in the crisp shirt. The man who talks in bullet points. That's exactly my point, he said. You're not that strong anymore. There it was. The dismissal. The quiet, tidy erasing of everything I had ever done. I looked down at my hands. The skin was thin now, blue veins like rivers, slight tremor, arthritis in the knuckles. They didn't look like the hands that used to lift boxes, scrub floors, hold feverish children. When you say the house is wasted on me, I asked. What exactly do you mean? Melissa set down her wine glass a little too forcefully. The stem chimed against the wood. Evelyn, she began, her voice smooth as the silk blouse she'd worn for my birthday. What Daniel means is, this place is big. There's equity here. After raising a family for decades, you deserve comfort, not maintenance and repairs and shoveling snow. I hire a boy from down the street to shovel, I said. He likes the cash. She smiled tightly. Right, but that's not the point. The point is, you could have a smaller, safer space and we could finally upgrade. She caught herself, but it was too late. Daniel closed his eyes for a fraction of a second. There it was, the flinch, the micro-expression of a man whose plan had just been exposed too soon. Upgrade? I repeated. The word tasted metallic in my mouth. Upgrade what? The kids need their own rooms, Daniel said quickly. We're cramped in the condo, Mom. 3 bedrooms, no yard. This house, it's just sitting here, invisible parent. There it was, too. I wasn't living in my home, I was sitting in their asset. At my age, I thought I'd earned the right to sit in my own living room without being treated like a piece of furniture, I said. Silence. In the kitchen, the old refrigerator hummed. A drop of wax slid down the candle and hardened. June cleared her throat. Maybe we should just eat the cake first, she murmured. It's still your birthday, Evie. Melissa glanced at her, annoyance flashing across her carefully made-up face. She didn't like distractions. Not when she was this close. Daniel reached into his leather briefcase. He'd brought a briefcase to his mother's birthday dinner and pulled out a neat stack of papers clipped together. White, sharp-edged, smelling faintly of toner. I talked to a guy at work, he said, not meeting my eyes now. He recommended a lawyer who specializes in elder planning. The phrase lodged in my chest. Elder planning. Not my planning. Elder planning. Daniel pushed the stack toward me, right beside the brochure for Silver Pines. There's a lot of legal jargon, he said. But it's all standard. This way we can handle the bills, the house, any emergencies. Power of attorney, title transfer, all that stuff. It protects you. The house, I said. My voice sounded very far away, even to me. What about the house? He gave a little shrug. We put it in my name now, that's all. It simplifies things. Avoids probate later. You still stay here for now, of course. Nothing changes day to day. Something in my chest twisted. For years, I'd been afraid of this exact moment, without daring to name it. The legacy theft, fear. People write articles about it, children pushing for signatures. Just in case. I'd read them in the library, alone at the wooden tables that smelled like old paper and lemon polish. I'd thought, asterisk, asterisk, not my Daniel. Asterisk, asterisk. I traced the edge of the top sheet with my fingertip. The paper was cool and smooth. My reflection trembled in the dark window behind him. Just a faint outline, a small woman in a faded blue sweater, back slightly stooped. I looked like someone easy to move. What did you tell the lawyer about me? I asked. Daniel frowned, confused. What do you mean? I said, choosing each word as carefully as if it were a step on black ice. Did you tell him I was still competent to make my own decisions? Or did you say I'm forgetful? Confused? A burden? The word hung between us like smoke. Burden. June shifted in her seat again. My sister has always been better at disappearing than me. She learned early to avoid being in the middle. She stared hard at the salt shaker, fingers worrying the edge of her napkin. Melissa let out a small, exasperated breath. Evelyn! Nobody said burden. You're putting words in our mouths. This is exactly why we wanted to do this now. While you can still understand everything. There it was, identity erosion, served with a smile. Do this now. Before you stop being you. I still understand the difference between help and control, I said. I understand the difference between my home and your upgrade. Daniel's cheeks flushed. He hadn't expected resistance. Not from me. Mothers my age are expected to stay quiet, nod, sign where we are told, and then move our photo albums into one small dresser in a cozy facility. That's the role. The good, reasonable mother. Mom, he said, switching to the gentle but firm tone he uses on his children when they're hovering near the street. You're reading too much into this. Everyone does this now. It's just paperwork. He slid a pen across the table. It rolled until it stopped against my plate, next to a smear of gravy. Sign where the yellow stickers are, he said. We'll handle the rest. You don't need to stress about bills anymore. You'll be looked after. Looked after. By the same people who hadn't visited in 6 weeks because Melissa was too busy and the kids had soccer. But they had time to meet a lawyer, draft papers, print brochures. My throat felt tight. My hands, resting in my lap, were trembling now not from age, but from contained anger, suppressed for so many years. I thought of all the nights I'd stayed up sewing Halloween costumes when we couldn't afford store-bought. The double shifts I'd worked at the hospital cafeteria when his father's back went out and the disability checks were delayed. The way I'd signed my name on credit card applications I didn't want, just to keep the lights on while Daniel and his sister slept in warm beds. Sacrifice misremembered. In their stories now, they came from a stable home. They talk about how hard they worked to get where they are, and I'm a background character who did what moms do. It's noder. At my age, I thought losing my home was something that would happen slowly, roof leaking, stairs creaking, maybe a pipe bursting in winter. I never imagined it would feel like this. My own son, sitting at my table in my warm yellow dining room, sliding me out of the frame with a stack of paper and a ballpoint pen. "Do you remember your father's hands?" I asked suddenly. Daniel blinked. "What?" "Your father's hands," I repeated. "How they looked on the day he signed this house." June looked up, surprised. She remembered. "They were filthy," I said softly. "He came straight from the factory, grease in the lines of his fingers. He washed them twice, but it didn't come out. The lawyer gave him a fancy pen. He laughed because it slipped in his fingers. I could see it as clearly as if it were yesterday. The harsh fluorescent light in the tiny office, the smell of ink and stale coffee, your father's grin when they handed him the keys. "A house, Evie," he kept saying. "Ours." I looked up at Daniel. "He didn't build this for you," I said. "He built it for us." For me. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. The rain at the window grew heavier, a soft, insistent drumming. Melissa broke the silence. "Well, he's gone now," she said quietly. There was a hardness underneath the softness in her voice. "And things change. You can't live in the past forever, Evelyn, too." I turned my head very slowly to look at her. Her eyes flicked away for just a moment, a tiny dart of guilt. There, and gone. "No," I agreed. "I can't live in the past." I picked up the pen. My heart thudded in my chest, the way it did the day I signed my marriage certificate, the day I signed the mortgage, the day I signed my name under next of kin, when the doctor handed me the clipboard outside the ICU. Daniel's shoulders relaxed. Melissa's lips curved. June watched me, her eyes wide and suddenly wet. She had always believed I would do what was expected, that I would fold. At my age, people assume you'll choose peace over dignity. My hand hovered over the first yellow sticker. The black letters on the page blurred a little. I blinked them into focus. "Just here, Mom," Daniel said softly. His voice trembled with relief. "We're doing the right thing." I smiled then, a small, polite smile, the kind you give a stranger who has just stepped a little too close in line. Without breaking eye contact, I set the pen down on the table, very gently. Then I pushed the entire stack of papers back toward him with one slow, steady movement. "I'll let my lawyer look at it first," I said. The way the color drained from his face told me everything I needed to know. The rain had turned into a steady whisper against the windows by the time Daniel gathered the papers back into his briefcase. His movements were tight, jerky the same way he used to move at 14 when he'd been caught lying about where he'd spent the afternoon. He didn't speak. Not at first. It was Melissa who filled the silence, her voice stretched thin but sugar-coated. "Of course," she said. "Of course you can have someone look at it. If that makes you feel comfortable." Asterisk, comfortable, asterisk, another small slicing word, a word people use when they think you're fragile porcelain perched on the edge of a shelf. The dining room felt colder now. The candles had burned low, thin rivers of wax running down their sides. The scent of rosemary had faded, replaced by the faint metallic smell of rain sneaking through the old window frame. I tugged my cardigan closer around my shoulders. "At my age," I murmured. "Comfort is a luxury. Clarity is what I need." June exhaled shakily. She had always been sensitive to tension, ever since we were girls, sharing a small bedroom with floral wallpaper and a single cracked window facing the alley. She'd hide when our father raised his voice. I'd step forward. Those roles never changed. Now she whispered, "Evie, maybe we should have coffee in the kitchen." But I wasn't moving. Not yet. Not while Daniel's eyes kept flicking to the papers as if he'd lost control of something he'd been sure he'd already won. "Mom," he said finally, "since when do you have a lawyer?" The question came out stiff, clipped. My son hates surprises, especially surprises from me. Especially the ones that suggest I live a life he can't fully supervise. I folded my hands in my lap, feeling the slight ache in my knuckles. Since last year, I said. After the break-in, 3 streets over, Melissa straightened. Break-in? You never told us. You never asked. A tiny twitch in her lips, offense, annoyance, maybe even a flicker of fear. Daniel leaned back, crossing his arms. Mom, if you've been making legal arrangements without telling us, I met his gaze. Why would I need to tell you? His nostrils flared. A tiny sign, but I saw it the way children look when something they believed was theirs slips out of reach. The invisible parent pain rose in my chest like a slow tide. For years, I'd swallowed it birthdays where I was handed gift cards instead of phone calls, Christmas mornings where I was asked to keep it simple so the kids wouldn't get overwhelmed, weekends where I waited with a warm casserole that stayed untouched because the traffic was bad again. My life had slowly shrunk into a collection of polite invitations and canceled plans. And now, they wanted the house. Daniel pushed away from the table abruptly. The chair legs scraped harshly against the wood, a sharp sound that made June flinch. I don't understand why you're being so difficult, he said. We're trying to help you. Help, I repeated softly. The word tasted bitter. Or solve a problem? He opened his mouth, closed it again. His eyes dropped for just a second. There. A flick of guilt. So fast you'd miss it if you didn't raise the boy. He cleared his throat. Mom, look. When Dad died, the air left me. My fingertips tingled. My husband had been gone 8 years, but the mention of him still struck like a cold wind. Daniel continued, slower now. You were alone. You still are. Melissa and I, we've taken on, well, the responsibility of looking out for you. And honestly, it would help times if you… I said. There it is. Melissa straightened sharply. What's that supposed to mean? That this isn't about my safety, I said. It's about your mortgage, she bristled. Her shoulders tightened under her silk blouse. That's unfair, but true, I replied gently. You said the house would help you upgrade. That wasn't about me. Daniel's jaw clenched. He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't. At my age, people think we miss these shifts in tone, these hurried glances, these small mistakes in wording that reveal more than they intend. But I've spent 4 decades listening. Really listening to every sigh, every silence, every unspoken tension at this table. I know my children better than they know themselves. The rain grew heavier, drumming steadily. The dining room lights flickered once. The house was old, yes, but it was mine. Every creak in the floorboards had a memory. Every crack in the wall had a story. And now they wanted to replace me with fresh paint and new carpet. Melissa stood suddenly, gathering plates with unnecessary force. I'll get dessert, she said. Each word clipped as she stacked plates too tightly together. The porcelain clinked sharp, impatient. She wasn't avoiding conflict. She was avoiding losing control. Daniel leaned forward, lowered his voice. Mom, listen. We're not the bad guys here. You're overreacting. You've always been emotional about the house. Emotional. Another dismissal. A soft slap. This house, I said, is the only thing I have left that's mine. His face flickered just a brief expression of annoyance, mixed with something sharper, colder. A glimpse of the man Melissa had helped shape. Mom, he said, you can't take this personally. I stared at him. Slowly, quietly, letting the silence stretch until the weight of it pressed into the room like heavy wool. How can I not? I asked. It is personal, he swallowed, looked down again. It's just paperwork. Everyone does this at some point. I'm not everyone, I said. Behind us, Melissa dropped a spoon. It clattered onto the tiled kitchen floor. She cursed softly, first time she'd broken the polite wife illusion all night. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Look, let's just regroup, talk about it later. We're all tired. June looked between us helplessly. Evie, maybe. This is just one of those misunderstandings families get into. I shook my head. No, It's not a misunderstanding. It's a pattern. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Daniel stiffened. A pattern? At my age, I said quietly. You begin to see things clearly. The visits that stopped, the calls that grew shorter, the holidays that got quieter, the sudden interest in my finances, the way your wife looks at the baseboards and says words like potential. Melissa reappeared in the doorway, holding the cake with its 7 small candles. She looked at me the way some people look at an aging pet, sad, impatient, and deciding when it's time for the vet. Cake, she said flatly. Let's just finish the night. She set it down. Chocolate frosting, a scent of sugar, and something slightly burnt. As Daniel reached for the lighter, I noticed Melissa's fingers tapping the counter behind her. Fast, nervous. It struck me then she expected me to fold. To sign. To be the grateful old mother who hands over the keys with a trembling smile. She didn't know me at all. Asterisk. You don't need to protect yourself. Asterisk. My children always seem to say with their actions. Asterisk. We'll do the thinking for you. Asterisk. But at my age, I had finally realized something. I was allowed to protect myself. I watched the tiny flames flicker atop the candles. Their light reflected in Daniel's eyes, so hopeful, so determined, so sure he knew how this night would end. He began to sing. Alone. Off-key. Happy birthday to you. June joined in, voice thin and shaky. Melissa hummed half-heartedly, her smile brittle. I stared at the cake. 7 candles for 70 years. 70 years of holding families together while slowly erasing myself. When the song ended, Daniel leaned forward. Make a wish, Mom. The rain outside softened for a moment, as if listening. I closed my eyes. I didn't wish for health. I didn't wish for happiness. I didn't wish for more time. I wished for strength, for clarity, for the courage to hold the line. When I opened my eyes, Daniel looked relieved, like he believed he still had control of the narrative. But something in my face must have changed, because I saw a flicker, just a flicker of uncertainty cross Melissa's eyes. I blew out the candles. And in the darkness that followed, I knew something with absolute certainty. The days of being invisible in my own home were over. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter, as if it were holding its breath with me. The November light was thin and gray, filtering through the lace curtains in my kitchen. The radiator clicked and hissed, sending up a faint metallic warmth that barely reached my feet. I wrapped both hands around my coffee mug. The heat steadied my fingers. The scent dark roast with a hint of vanilla filled the small space. In that moment, I let myself feel everything I'd swallowed the night before. At my age, mornings hit harder. Not because of the stiffness in the bones, but because silence leaves room for truth. I heard Daniel's voice replaying in my mind. This house is wasted on you now. You're emotional. We're just helping. Sign where the yellow stickers are. The invisible parent pain pressed against my ribs like something trying to escape. I set the mug down, ran my thumb along the chipped tile countertop, tracing the same crack my husband and I had argued over patching 20 years ago. Back then, life was messy but honest. Now everything was clean and polished and deceitful. I walked into the living room. The air was colder there. The hardwood floor creaked under my slippers. I looked at the old family photos lined along the mantelpaper, memories trapped behind dusty glass. There was Daniel at 9, holding the science fair ribbon I'd stayed up sewing onto a cardboard display. There he was at 18, wearing his graduation gown I'd ironed twice because the wrinkles made him self-conscious. And there I was beside him in every picture, smiling, proud, invisible behind the shine of his accomplishments. I touched the glass gently. My reflection shimmered back at me, faint and pale. What happened to us? I whispered. The house answered with silence. A car drove by outside, the sound of tires slicing through wet pavement. It snapped me back. I sat down on the sofa, the embroidered cushions sinking under my weight. I stared at my hands. They had once braided hair, typed invoices, kneaded dough, soothed fevers. Now they were shaking again, not from age, but from the slow realization that my child saw me as an obstacle. The sacrifice misremembered hit me hard. I remembered a winter when Daniel was 12. We'd been behind on bills. The heating shut off for one night. He'd been cold, shivering. I'd wrapped blankets around him and told him it was an adventure, like camping indoors. I'd lied, smiling through chattering teeth. And now he spoke of my house like an investment strategy. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, startling me. I leaned forward, my back protesting slightly. Picked it up. A text from Daniel. Short, clean, efficient. Asterisk, asterisk. Morning. Can we talk later? Melissa and I want to clear things up. Asterisk, asterisk. Clear things up. Not apologize. Not listen. Clear things up. Translation. Asterisk. We didn't get what we wanted yesterday, so we'll try a different angle today. Asterisk. My stomach tightened. At my age, anxiety clings differently. It sits behind the sternum like a stone. I typed back slowly. Asterisk, asterisk. Not today. I need space. Asterisk, asterisk. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was waiting, hovering. Then they vanished. No reply. Avoidance behavior. Classic Daniel. When he didn't get his way, he went silent. Strategic silence. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was heavy, the clouds thick like bruises. A cold draft slipped through the frame, brushing my neck. I tugged my cardigan tighter. Across the street, my neighbor, Mrs. Patel, was sweeping her driveway despite the drizzle. She looked up, met my eyes, gave a small wave, a normal gesture, but something about it steadied me. Someone saw me. I stepped back just as the doorbell suddenly rang. Sharp, unexpected. Too early for the mailman. My heart lurched. I shuffled to the foyer, the hallway cold under my feet. The smell of the old wood floors dry, faintly sweet mixed with the colder scent of wet air seeping under the door. When I opened it, Daniel stood there. No smile, no warmth, just a tightness around the eyes. His jacket was damp from the drizzle, his hair slightly mussed, his breathing a little too quick. "Mom," he said without greeting, stepping inside before I could even respond. The scent of outside wet leaves, cold wind followed him in. For a moment, I simply watched him, the grown man, the boy I'd held, the stranger who wanted my signature. He turned toward me, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mom, can we sit?" This whole situation got blown out of proportion last night. Situation, not conversation, not concern. Situation. I gestured toward the sofa. He sat stiffly, leaning forward, elbows on his knees the way he used to when preparing to negotiate with landlords or insurance agents. I sat across from him in my husband's old armchair. The fabric was worn but warm. Being in it steadied me. Daniel inhaled sharply. "Melissa's upset," he started. "She thinks." "Well." "I don't," I said gently. His head snapped up. "Mom, I trust actions," I continued. "And last night, your actions were clear." He ran a hand through his hair. "A nervous habit. Look, we shouldn't have sprung the paperwork on you. I get that. But you have to understand. We're under a lot of pressure right now. The condo's too small. The kids are sharing a room. Our expenses are—" "There it is again," I said softly. Our. He frowned. "What? You keep talking about your needs." "Not mine." Daniel exhaled hard, frustration leaking through. "Mom, this isn't just about needs. It's about responsibility. You're 70. You live alone. You forget things sometimes." A sharp pain sliced through my chest. Identity erosion. "What things do I forget?" I asked, voice thin but controlled. He hesitated. "A beat, too." He searched his memory for something, anything that could be framed as concern. "Well, you left the porch light on all night last week." I blinked. Slowly. "That's your example?" He flushed. "I'm saying, you're not as sharp as you used to be." I felt myself freezing inside. A quiet, emotional freeze response when your body tries to play dead to avoid being hurt. My voice was soft when it came. "You're trying to paint me as incompetent so you feel justified taking my home." "Mom, stop," he said sharply. "This isn't about taking. It's about preparing. If something happens to you, it hasn't. But it could," he snapped. "Any day now. We need access to your accounts, your house, your assets. We need to be able to act quickly." The word assets hung in the air for a moment too long. He realized it. He regretted it. but it was already spoken. My hand tightened around the armrest. "Daniel," I said softly, "you're not talking to me like a son. You're talking like a man trying to secure leverage." His lips parted. Hurt flickered there. Anger under it. He whispered, "Mom, you're being paranoid." Paranoid. I felt something inside me break, not in collapse, but in clarity. The psychological collapse plus quiet clarity floor. I stood. Slowly. My knees protested, but I ignored them. Daniel watched me, confused. "Mom?" End quote. I walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a folder, thin, blue, unmarked. I'd kept it hidden behind old novels. I returned to the living room. He watched me carefully now, warily. I sat down again, placing the folder on my lap. "What's that?" he asked. His voice had changed tighter, brittle. I didn't open it. "Not yet. Not for him. It's something I'll discuss with my lawyer," I said. His face drained of color, just slightly. Enough for me to see it. Enough to confirm what I already knew. His fingers twitched. A micro-expression of panic. Not for me. For what he might lose. I took a slow breath. The room smelled faintly of old paper and rain. "At my age," I said quietly, "I may walk slowly, but I am not walking blindly." Daniel swallowed. "Mom, please, don't make this difficult." I looked him directly in the eyes. For once, he couldn't hold the gaze. "It's already difficult," I said. "You made sure of that." He opened his mouth, closed it, stood abruptly. "I need some air," he muttered. He walked to the door, paused, looked back at me, his expression a scramble of guilt, frustration, and something darker fear of losing the future he'd planned without me. "We'll talk later," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an expectation. He walked out, closing the door too gently, the way people do when they don't want to look like they're slamming it. I stood there in the quiet. The house hummed softly, the old radiator clicking again. I pressed the blue folder against my chest. Inside it was the first step toward protecting myself, and everything that was mine. I wasn't sure how the next part would unfold, but for the first time in years, I felt something sturdy inside me. A boundary. A line he had crossed, and a line I would not let him cross again. I didn't open the blue folder until the evening, when the sun had slipped behind the row of old maples across the street, and the house settled into its familiar nighttime quiet. The lamplight in the living room was warm but soft, leaving pockets of shadow in the corners. The air smelled faintly of lemon oil from the furniture polish I'd used earlier. A small ritual that grounded me. I sat in my husband's old armchair again, the fabric rough under my palm, and let myself breathe. At my age, breathing isn't just a physical act, it's an emotional one. Slow. Deliberate, claiming space in my own chest again. I opened the folder. Inside were neatly clipped documents printed on crisp, white paper. Not legal paperwork drafted by my children, no. These were mine. My preparations. My quiet rebellion. A year ago, after the break-in down the street, I'd gone to see a lawyer named Sarah Kim. Young, early 30s maybe, but sharp. Her office smelled like new carpet and strong coffee, and she had a way of explaining things without making me feel old or foolish. I remember sitting in her sleek metal chair, my hands trembling a little from nerves. "I'm not trying to hide anything," I had said. "I just want to make sure no one can take my home without my permission." She had smiled gently. "That's not hiding. That's protecting." I too now. That word protecting had stayed with me. Now, as I read the documents again, they felt like a lifeline. The first page was the updated deed. The house my house was held in a living trust. In Times my Times name, with Times me Times as the trustee, and instructions that if anything happened to me, the property wouldn't automatically pass to Daniel or anyone else unless I specifically allowed it. I traced the edge of the paper, feeling the tiny raised seam where the ink had dried. My hands weren't steady, but they were sure. The next document was the updated will. Not a dramatic, vengeful one, just a clear, legally airtight one that protected everything I had ever built. It named the trust as the primary beneficiary. It included detailed notes about joint accounts, power of attorney, and how any future changes had to be made with 2 witnesses and my express written consent. Then there were the notes. My notes. Written in my shaky handwriting on yellow legal pads. Observations. Patterns. Small comments about Daniel and Melissa, dates and times when they'd mentioned the house, suggested downsizing, made comments about wasted space, or hinted at my supposed forgetfulness. Evidence, Sarah had told me gently. Write down anything that feels off. Anything they might later try to twist. I hadn't thought I'd ever need it. But now, flipping through the pages, my heart clenched with a strange, heavy gratitude for that younger lawyer who had seen what I couldn't admit yet. As I studied the notes, a memory tugged at me, my husband's voice, low and tired, the week before he died. Evie, he had whispered, lying in that too-clean hospital bed with the bleach smell in the air. Don't let anyone push you around when I'm gone. Back then, I'd brushed his hair off his forehead and whispered back, who would push me around? He closed his eyes and sighed. People get greedy when they think they know better. I understood now. A cold draft slipped under the window frame. I reached for the blanket draped over the chair, the soft, knitted one June had given me years ago before she started shrinking away from conflict to keep the peace. The yarn was warm and thick, textured under my fingers. I pulled it over my lap and continued reading. There was a letter, too. A short one. From Sarah. Evelyn, if your children ever pressure you to sign anything, call me first. No signature is valid if you are under duress. SK. I exhaled shakily. For a moment, the fear inside me loosened its grip. My preparations weren't dramatic or spiteful, they were simply mine. Quiet steps I'd taken to protect the life I'd built. A sound startled me. My phone vibrating on the coffee table again. The sharp buzz cut through the quiet. I leaned forward, joints aching slightly, and picked it up. A message from Melissa this time. Short, cold, calculated. Asterisk, asterisk. We need to talk about next steps. This is important for the whole family. Asterisk, asterisk. I could almost hear her voice layered beneath the text, tight, controlled, a little too sweet. Melissa never said anything directly. She packaged her intentions in pretty phrases. Next steps. They were regrouping. I stared at the message, feeling the now familiar weight in my chest. But unlike before, clarity cut through it. I typed back slowly. Asterisk, asterisk. I'll be meeting my lawyer this week. We'll talk after. Asterisk, asterisk. The 3 dots appeared immediately, even faster than Daniel's had earlier, as if she had been waiting on the other side of her phone, pacing, planning. Then they disappeared. No reply. A slammed digital door. I leaned back against the armchair. The lamplight flickered slightly, casting trembling shadows along the rug. The house felt warm again, warmer than it had all day, as if the walls themselves understood what was happening. I stood, slowly. My knees cracked softly, but I didn't feel weak. I walked toward the hallway mirror. The glass was old, edges chipped. My reflection was slightly distorted, a woman with silvering hair pulled back, wearing a soft cardigan and an expression I hadn't seen on myself in years. Determination. Not loud, not fierce, but steady. I touched the mirror lightly. It was cool under my fingers. At my age, I whispered, I have earned the right to guard my own life. I went to my bedroom, opened the cedar chest at the foot of the bed, and placed the blue folder inside. The chest smelled of old wood and faint lavender sachets, scents of a life lived carefully, lovingly. Before closing the lid, I added something else. The photo of me and my husband standing on the porch the day we bought the house. He was laughing. My hair was windblown. The siding behind us was peeling even then. We'd been imperfect. We'd been struggling. But we'd been ours. I closed the chest gently. The click of the latch felt final. Important. In the distance, a car door slammed. I froze. Then footsteps on the wet sidewalk. Slow. Heavy. Someone was coming up my walkway. My heart thudded. The house seemed to hold its breath again. A firm knock echoed through the hallway. I walked toward the front door, each step measured. The warmth from the floorboards rose through my slippers. The faint scent of rain drifted through the seams in the frame. I reached the door, but I didn't open it. Not yet. A familiar voice called through the wood, tired, strained, but unmistakably his. Mom? It's me. Daniel. Another knock. More urgent. Mom. We need to talk. I stood there in the dim hallway, the old chandelier flickering above me, and felt something shift inside. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt ready. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around me and reached for the doorknob. Whatever he wanted now, it would not be met with silence or surrender. I kept my hand on the doorknob for a moment, feeling the cool metal against my palm. Daniel knocked again, 3 quick taps, then a heavier one. The rhythm of someone trying to sound calm but failing. The hallway was dim, only the small lamp on the side table casting a warm circle of light on the faded wallpaper. I caught my reflection in the oval mirror above it, my posture straight, my eyes clearer than they had been in years. I opened the door. Daniel stood on the porch, damp from the misty evening air. His jacket was unzipped, his hair slightly messy, his breathing fast. Behind him, the streetlight cast a pale glow, making the rain look like drifting silver threads. "Mom," he said immediately, stepping forward. "We can't keep doing this." He moved to enter, but I didn't step aside. His feet stopped just short of the threshold. He blinked. "Are you not going to let me in?" I answered quietly. "You can come in if we speak respectfully." His jaw tightened, but after a beat, he nodded. "Okay." I stepped back. He entered, dripping faint specks of water onto the entry rug his father had bought at a flea market 30 years ago. The moment he stepped fully inside, I saw it the way his eyes swept the hallway. Quick, assessing, as if he were already imagining the space repainted, remodeled, re-owned. That small glance stung more than his words. We moved to the living room. The lamp gave the room a soft amber glow, the radiator humming with steady warmth. He sat on the edge of the sofa too close to the front, back rigid, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles blanched. I sank into my husband's chair. The fabric brushed warm against my legs. Daniel leaned forward. "Mom, what's going on? You're acting like we're the enemy." I folded my hands. "Daniel, you brought legal documents to my birthday dinner." He winced. "That was not the best timing, I admit. And you asked me to sign my house away." He rubbed his temple. "We weren't asking you to sign it away. We were trying to simplify things. We're taking on a lot, kids, work, expenses, and you believed I existed to lighten that load." He paused. His lips parted, but no words came out. Silence settled between us, thick, warm, heavy. Finally, he said, "We thought it was practical. That's all." "That's not all," I replied softly. "It was pressure." He opened his mouth again but shut it when he saw my expression. Something in him softened just a fraction. "I didn't think you'd react like this," he admitted. "I know," I said. "That's part of the problem." He flinched. A small, quick motion guilt. "At my age," I continued, "people assume I won't see through things. That I'll sign whatever's handed to me. To keep the peace." He looked at the carpet. "Mom," I leaned back slightly. "Why did you really bring those papers?" "I know." He hesitated, a long hesitation, long enough that I saw the truth forming in the muscles of his face before he spoke. "Because..." He exhaled, defeated. There it was, the emotional twist revealing itself fully. He continued. "Our mortgage adjusted. Melissa's hours got cut. We're drowning. And this house is..." He stopped himself. But the words hung in the air. The solution. Something inside me tensed, as if a cold hand had brushed my spine. I nodded slowly, letting the truth land. So it wasn't about my safety. He met my eyes. It was about all of us, including you. No. I heard it now. I saw it. The quiet desperation underneath his voice. The generational trauma of scarcity, the same thing that drove my husband to hoard overtime hours until his heart gave out. But desperation didn't excuse manipulation. I took a breath. The room felt heavier, but not in a suffocating way. More like something important was settling into place. "Daniel," I said gently, "I love you. Nothing will change that." He blinked hard, swallowing. "Then help us." "I am helping," I said. "Just not in the way you expect." His eyebrows knit together. "What does that mean?" It was time. I reached for the small woven basket beside my chair, a place I kept mail, receipts, and other little things I didn't want to lose. Inside was an envelope with Sarah's business card and a single page she'd told me to keep handy. I pulled it out and set it on the coffee table. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What's this?" "My lawyer's information," I said. "If anyone wants to talk to me about my home, my finances, or my assets, they will talk to her first." A silence fell sharp, cold, slicing, like the moment before a plate shatters on the floor. The legal twist began revealing itself. Daniel's face drained of color. "A lawyer? You have a lawyer?" "Mom, are you serious?" I nodded calmly. "I met with her last year, and you didn't tell us? At my age, I'm allowed privacy." He stared at me, stunned. "So, what did you do? What did she have you sign?" My voice was quiet. "She helped me structure my assets to protect myself so that no one can transfer this house or gain control of my accounts without my explicit, voluntary approval." His breath hitched, a tiny, strangled sound of disbelief. What does that mean for us?" he whispered. "It means," I said steadily, "that the house isn't available for anyone else to claim. Not now, not later, not without my consent." He slumped back slightly. His shoulders sagged. His hands loosened. The defeat wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet unraveling, one thread at a time. He whispered, "Melissa's going to lose her mind." That, I said softly, "is between you and your wife." He looked up at me suddenly. "She'll say you don't trust us." "I trust you," I said. "I don't trust your intentions right now." He swallowed hard. His eyes looked wet, though he blinked the moisture back quickly. "I didn't think it'd come to this." "Neither did I replied. His voice wavered. "Mom, are you cutting me out of your life?" The question hit me like a gust of cold air. Sadness, heavy and familiar, filled my chest. "No," I said gently. "But I am drawing boundaries." That word hung in the air like a verdict. "Boundaries?" he repeated, stunned. "At my age," I said quietly, "I've realized that I'm allowed to say no. I'm allowed to keep what's mine. I'm allowed to make decisions that protect my dignity." His gaze flicked to the envelope again. Fear. Real fear, this time not of me, but of consequences. "I'm not trying to punish you," I said softly. "But I'm also not going to be used." Daniel looked down at his hands. His voice was hoarse. "Mom, I messed up." The words, simple, raw, cut deeper than anything else he'd said. I let out a slow breath. "Yes," I said. "You did." Silence. Not tense. Not angry. Just quiet. He whispered. "What happens now?" "We take space," I said. "We talk when we're calm. We rebuild slowly, if you want to." But as for the house, I met his eyes. Clear, unshaken. "That conversation is over." He closed his eyes. Just for a moment. When he opened them again, there was something new there. Shame, yes, but also understanding. Maybe even respect. He stood, slowly, as if every movement weighed something. "I should go," he murmured. I didn't stop him. He walked to the front door, paused, looked back. His face was softer than it had been in years. Younger, somehow. "Mom?" he asked quietly. "Can I come by again? Just to visit, just as your son." Warmth, unexpected, fragile, rose in my chest. "Yes," I said. "You can." "After." He nodded, swallowed, and stepped outside into the misty night. When the door closed, the house felt still again. Safe. Warm. I returned to my husband's chair, sank into the cushion, and felt a deep, settling peace spread through me. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of losing anything. I had protected what mattered. Tomorrow, though, the social twist would begin, because secrets like these never stay contained. Not in families, not in communities, and I had no control over what would happen when the truth about my boundaries reached the people who expected me to stay silent. The fallout didn't begin with Daniel. It began with Melissa. 3 days passed quietly, too quietly. I went about my routine as if nothing had happened. Morning tea with a slice of buttered toast, sorting laundry slowly, watering the plants in the sunroom. The November air seeped into the house through tiny gaps in the window frames, bringing with it the earthy scent of wet leaves and distant chimney smoke. At my age, silence is familiar, but this silence felt loaded like the air before a storm. On the fourth morning, as I sat at the dining table with the newspaper, a shadow passed across the frosted glass of my front door. A sharp knock followed. Firm. Impatient. I didn't need to guess. I opened the door to Melissa standing on the porch, arms crossed tightly, breath puffing in white clouds. Her hair was perfectly curled despite the cold drizzle, but her eyes were sharp enough to cut glass. "Evelyn," she said, voice clipped. "We need to talk." She didn't wait for an invitation. She brushed past me, bringing with her the strong scent of expensive perfume, floral, heavy, cloying. It filled the hallway like an unwelcome guest. I closed the door gently and followed her into the living room. She was already standing near the fireplace, heels planted, posture stiff. The room felt suddenly smaller with her inside it. "I assume Daniel told you," she began, "about your arrangements, my protections." I corrected softly. She blinked, her jaw tightened. "Protections. Right." Melissa wasn't the type to scream. Her anger ran cold, smooth, calculated. Quiet knives instead of loud blows. She smoothed her blouse, a gesture she used whenever she felt her control slipping. "You blindsided us," she said. "Completely." "I didn't blindside you," I replied. "You attempted to move me out of my home without giving me time to think." I simply responded. "That wasn't the intention." Her voice wavered at the end, a tiny tremor she couldn't quite hide. I watched her closely. The tapping of her heel against the rug, the way her fingers kept twisting her wedding ring, classic guilt manipulation couched as indignation. At my age, I'd learned to see the space between words. "What do you want, Melissa?" I asked. She swallowed. "We need the house, Evelyn." There it was. Raw. True. Unpolished. She continued. "We're drowning financially. Drowning. The condo is suffocating. The kids are. The house is not the solution," I said firmly. Her eyes flared, a flash of heat under the surface. "This is selfish. You don't need this space. You don't even use half of it." A direct blow meant to provoke guilt, but I didn't bend. "At my age," I said calmly, "I need familiarity more than I need space. I need safety more than convenience. And I need dignity more than guilt." She stared at me, bewildered, not used to this version of me. For years, I had been soft, accommodating, easy to step around. A mother whose boundaries were assumed to be optional. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said. "Family supports each other. Family doesn't pressure someone to sign away their home," I replied. Melissa's lips parted, then pressed together in a thin line. She took a slow breath. "People are going to talk," she said, "about your decision." "Ah, the beginning of the social twist." "Let them," I said. Her face tightened. "You're hurting Daniel," she hissed. I felt a flicker of pain deeper than anger, deeper than fear. The invisible parent pain. The idea that protecting myself equaled harming him. "I'm not hurting him," I said softly. "I'm teaching him a boundary." She looked thrown, almost offended by the implication that she or Daniel could ever be in the wrong. Melissa laughed once, dry and humorless. "So, this is who you really are." "So," I met her gaze. "No, this is who I've always been. You're just seeing it for the first time." Her nostrils flared. For a moment, the facade cracked. I saw something raw fear of losing what she had assumed would be hers one day. She grabbed her purse sharply. "Fine. Protect your house, but you're isolating yourself." "No," I said quietly. "I'm protecting myself." She stepped closer, lowering her voice to a near whisper. "People in town already think you're fragile. If they find out you're meeting lawyers behind your family's back." I met a lawyer to prevent exactly this kind of conversation. Her face froze, hard, cold. Without another word, she stormed to the door, pulled it open, and stepped out. The cold wind rushed in, chilling the hallway instantly. She didn't look back as she slammed the door behind her. The echo reverberated through the house. I stood still for a long moment, letting the silence settle. My heart ached not from fear, but from sadness. This wasn't a victory lap. This was the cost of protecting myself. I walked back to the kitchen, the floor cool under my feet. I set water to boil for tea, chamomile, calming, floral. The kettle hummed, slowly warming. Then my phone buzzed. A message from June. ***. Evie, I heard something. Call me when you can. ***. My stomach clenched. News spread fast in small towns. Faster when guilt wanted to justify itself. I called her. Her voice was shaky. Evie, are you all right? People are saying, well, they said Daniel told the pastor you're confused, that you're refusing help. The words slammed into me, cold and cruel. Confused. Refusing help. The weaponizing of age. My throat tightened. Is that what he said? I don't know, Evie. It's what's going around. I felt my knees weaken. I steadied myself on the kitchen counter, the cool tile biting into my palm. The social twist had begun. June, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm not confused. I know exactly what I'm doing. My sister hesitated. I know you do. I don't want people thinking you're losing it. I'm not. I whispered. I'm protecting myself. She sighed. I believe you, but others might not. You know how people talk. I knew. God, I knew. At my age, people love to decide whether your mind is slipping even if you're sharper than they are. After we hung up, I stood in the quiet kitchen. The kettle finally whistled, sharp and shrill. I turned off the stove and poured the water, watching steam rise in soft spirals. But as I stirred the honey into my cup, I heard something outside, a sound that made my breath catch. Voices, 2 of them, Daniel and Melissa. They were standing at the end of my walkway, not realizing the living room window was slightly open. The cold air carried their words straight inside. She made a trust, Daniel said, voice tense. We can't touch the house. So what now? Melissa snapped. We figure something out, but she's not signing anything. Melissa exhaled sharply. She can't just keep everything from us. It's deceit. Daniel's voice lowered, unnervingly flat. If she keeps refusing help, people will think she's making rash decisions. Maybe someone will say she needs oversight. A chill ran over my skin. Oversight. A word used when someone wants control without asking. We're not done, he said. Trust or no trust. I stepped back from the window, heart pounding. The cup trembled in my hands. Tea sloshed onto the counter. I closed my eyes. This wasn't over, but neither was I. At my age, they thought I wouldn't fight. They thought I'd crumble under gossip. They thought they could nudge the world's opinion against me. They didn't realize something yet. I had documentation. I had legal protection. I had a voice. And for the first time in years, I was using it. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, exposure, reckoning. And the truth, my truth, would no longer be whispered behind closed doors. It would be spoken where everyone could hear. I didn't sleep that night. The house was warm, but my skin felt cold. Not from fear. Fear had burned off days ago. From recognition. At my age, there's a moment when you stop hoping people will save you and realize you must save yourself. I sat in the living room long after midnight, wrapped in the knitted blanket, the faint scent of lavender rising from its fibers. Outside, a thin fog drifted along the street, softening the street lamps into hazy gold halos. The house creaked gently, familiar and alive, like it was breathing with me. I held the blue folder in my lap, not because I needed reassurance, because I needed strength. By morning, I had made a decision. I dressed slowly, dark slacks, a soft blue sweater, my warm wool coat, clothing that made me feel steady, present, awake. I pinned my silver hair back neatly, the way I did in my working years when I needed to command respect without a single raised voice. Then I picked up the phone. "Hi, Sarah," I said when my lawyer answered, her voice bright and clear through the line. "I think it's time to finalize the next step." Her tone turned serious. "What happened?" "Gossip," I said. "Pressure." "And now?" Implied threats. A short silence. Then, I'll meet you at my office in an hour. The legal twist was no longer a secret. It was becoming action. Walking into Sarah's office felt like stepping into a different world, a crisp, quiet place that smelled of coffee and clean paper. The fluorescent lights hummed lightly, but the space felt calm. She took one look at me, her dark eyes sharp. "Tell me everything." I did. About the birthday ambush. About Daniel's desperation. About Melissa's anger. About the gossip. About the word times oversight times whispered at the end of my walkway. When I finished, she sat back, hands folded, expression controlled. "Evelyn," she said gently, "this is exactly why we put protections in place. But if they're escalating, we can take one more step. One that removes any doubt about your decision-making capacity." I inhaled softly. "What step?" "A competency assessment. Voluntary. Proactive. You choose the doctor, not them." I hesitated. The word times competency times stung, even though I knew I was clear as day. At my age, even suggesting you need to prove your clarity feels like a quiet insult, she continued. "This is not because you need it. This is because it becomes irrefutable proof. Legally, socially, everything. If anyone whispers that you're confused, you'll have a doctor's report saying the opposite." She slid a document across the desk. "With this, any attempt to gain control over you becomes impossible." I stared at the page, a line I hadn't expected to cross. But I realized something. I wasn't proving myself to them. I was protecting myself times from times them. I signed. My hand trembled only slightly. 2 days later, after the assessment, straightforward questions, memory tasks, spatial reasoning, all handled with respect, the doctor shook my hand warmly. "Miss Clark," he said, "your cognitive function is excellent. I wish half my younger patients were as sharp." Warmth bloomed in my chest. Validation not because I needed it, but because others wanted to take it from me. He handed me the report in a sealed envelope. "This is yours," he said. "Guard it." I did. The next Sunday, the community center held its monthly luncheon. I hadn't planned to go, my energy had been low, and the idea of whispers behind my back felt like too much. But then I thought, no, this is exactly why I times should times go. At my age, people expect retreat, silence, embarrassment. I refused all three. The center smelled of coffee and glazed rolls, the tables covered in floral plastic cloths, chatter echoing under the high ceiling. When I stepped inside, conversations dipped slightly, not stopped, but shifted. Eyes turned. Soft, pitying looks, curious glances, whispers blooming like weeds. I felt a pang deep inside. Pain floor, 8, emotional betrayal. Hearing that my son had painted me as confused twisted something old and tender inside me, but I kept walking. Halfway through the room, Pastor Mitchell approached. He was kind, a little forgetful, smelling faintly of peppermint and old hymn books. "Evelyn," he said gently, "I heard you've been having a difficult time. If you ever need guidance," I held his gaze. "Pastor, have you heard I'm confused?" He blinked. Well, Daniel mentioned you were stressed." The story had softened itself in his hands, but its intent was the same. "I'm not confused," I said clearly, my voice carrying farther than I expected. "I'm perfectly capable, and I have a doctor's assessment confirming my competency if anyone has doubts." A hush formed around us. Several heads turned. A few whispers crackled. Sharp, quick, electric. Pastor Mitchell straightened. "Oh, I didn't know about that." "I suspected you didn't," I said softly. "I just wanted the truth to be just as loud as the rumor." "Why?" Something shifted in his face, an apologetic softness. A few feet away, Mrs. Patel nodded approvingly, and beside her, the Wainwright sisters, the town's most prolific gossipers, leaned in, eyes wide with new information that would outrun the old. Social twist. Activated. Then came the inevitable. "Mom?" Daniel's voice. Behind me. I turned. He stood there, hands half raised as if he weren't sure whether to hug me or defend himself. Melissa hovered behind him, lips tight, eyes flashing with a mix of irritation and apprehension. He swallowed. "You came. I live here," I said. "Why wouldn't I?" He exhaled shakily. Everyone's talking. About times your time's version of events, I corrected. I thought I'd share mine. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Mom, you made us look… No, I said, stepping close enough that he had to meet my eyes. I made myself look strong. Melissa stiffened. People think we tried to… They think, I said calmly, what you allowed them to think. Daniel's face crumpled. Just a little. A crack in the armor. The child in him resurfacing. Ashamed. Conflicted. I never wanted to hurt you, he whispered. You did, I said softly. But you can stop now. He blinked rapidly. Melissa looked away, arms crossed. Daniel, I continued, my voice quieter, warmer. I'm not your responsibility. I'm not a burden. And I'm not an asset. I'm your mother. And I'm capable. He swallowed hard. I know. I just… panicked. Fear makes people do careless things, I said. But it doesn't excuse them. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, with a shaky exhale, he murmured, I'm sorry, Mom. My chest tightened, a mix of grief and relief. 2 decades of unspoken things rising, then settling. I accept your apology, I said. But rebuilding will take time. He nodded, eyes damp. I'll earn it. I touched his arm gently, my fingers soft against the fabric of his jacket. For the first time in years, he let the gesture land, instead of brushing it off with a joke or a rushed excuse. Melissa cleared her throat. So, what now? Now. A single word holding decades. Now, I said. I keep my home. I keep my autonomy. I keep my boundaries. I looked directly at her. And if either of you want a relationship with me, you respect that. She inhaled sharply but didn't argue. A small victory, quiet, but real. Around us, murmurs spread. And slowly, very slowly, they changed shape. From pity to respect. From rumor to truth. The social twist had reached its final turn. Daniel stepped aside. Can we… sit with you? I nodded. As we walked toward an empty table, a warm beam of sunlight broke through the gray clouds outside, lighting the center's scuffed floor in a soft golden patch. For the first time in months, the tension in my shoulders eased. At my age, rebirth doesn't look like starting over. It looks like reclaiming pieces of yourself you thought were lost forever. Dignity, voice, home, self-respect. I sat down, feeling the chair press solidly beneath me. Warm, supportive. Daniel pulled out the chair beside mine. Melissa sat across from us, quieter than usual, observing, adjusting, perhaps learning. I took a slow sip of coffee, letting its warmth spread through my chest. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not as a burden, not as an obstacle, not as an inheritance, but as a woman with a life still unfolding. And as the chatter of the room rose around us, I realized something profound. They thought I would break, but instead, I found myself again, and I wasn't invisible anymore.